Square Cow Countdowns. Hiya, Slash here. Since its inception, I've gone out of my way to avoid the DC Extended Universe like the Black Plague, but in honor of the superhero special, I'm trying something a little different. This is my list of the 10 reasons why the DC Extended Universe sucks. I actually sat through and watched Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, all for the purposes of this video. This is not a top 10 list. Instead, I'm just going to talk about these 10 reasons in the same order that I came up with them. And since we're not ranking anything, there aren't really any rules. But before we start, I just want to say that this video is entirely based on my own personal opinions, which are definitely going to be different than your opinions. If you agree with me, great! Tell me about it in the comments. And if you don't agree with me, well then tell me about that too. Okay, so now that you understand what we're doing, I think it's time to get this show on the road. Starting with... Reason 10. Obvious Marvel Cinematic Universe ripoff. This one is pretty self-explanatory. They're not even subtle about it. Basically, the entire reason the DC Extended Universe even exists is because they saw how much moolah the Marvel Cinematic Universe rakes in, and were like, hey, that's a lot of money. Let's make our own cinematic universe. What could possibly go wrong? Well, I can think of 9 more reasons. Reason 9. Zack Snyder. Now, I'm not saying that Zack Snyder is a bad director. 300 was awesome, and Watchmen was also really cool. His directing style and trademarks definitely have their place in Hollywood, but in my opinion, the DC Extended Universe got off to a very rocky start because of the first few movies, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, and Suicide Squad. Well, at least Man of Steel is better than Superman Returns, but that's not saying much. Probably the most notable thing about these movies is their lack of color. I don't know why, but Zack Snyder drains them all away in post-production, and it's not just in the movies he directs. For a good example, let's look at Wonder Woman's outfit. Here's what it looks like in the comics, and here's how it looked in the movie. Oh, and speaking of Wonder Woman... Reason 8. Hit or miss casting choices. The casting in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has almost always been perfect, with only a few exceptions. This put a lot of pressure on the producers of the DC Extended Universe. People were expecting them to make the same kind of decisions, and for the most part they did a decent job. But Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor really didn't work. When I first heard about it, I was actually intrigued, until I saw the movie. But the one that bothers me more than that is Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She was praised for her portrayal, and most people consider Wonder Woman to be one of the best movies in the entire DC Extended Universe. And what a surprise, it's not directed by Zack Snyder. I seem to be one of only a few people that just doesn't like this casting choice. Yes, Gal Gadot is gorgeous, but Diana Prince is an Amazon. Powerful female warriors. They should be big, strong, and voluptuous. So then why the hell would they cast this skinny and petite model? She's skin and bones. When I think of Wonder Woman, my mind immediately goes to Linda Carter. But nowadays, a more appropriate casting choice would be, I don't know, Katy Perry? Or maybe Megan Fox? Except Megan Fox can't act. Not that that means anything to some directors. Reason 7. Weird story choices. Maybe it's to try and give the DC Extended Universe its own identity, or maybe it's because the producers didn't plan out all the movies in advance, but Batman and Superman are DC's most iconic and easily recognizable figures. Superman got his own movie, but Batman didn't. Instead, his debut in the DC Extended Universe is in a movie where he and Superman are butting heads because Jesse Eisenberg is manipulating them. And the titular fight between these two doesn't happen until the very end. Plus, Batman cheats by using kryptonite gas. In a way, I can understand that. Since Batman doesn't have any superpowers at all, in a fair fight, Superman would destroy him. But what's the point of calling the movie Batman vs. Superman if the fight is barely even 5 minutes? Oh yeah, and at the end, Superman dies from Doomsday. But obviously he won't stay dead, so, what's the point in even killing him? Now let's compare Batman vs. Superman to Iron Man's first movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What's it about? Tony Stark becoming Iron Man. Okay, now how about Doctor Strange? It's about how he became the most powerful wizard on Earth. The producers of the DC Extended Universe need to make their movies focus more on their characters and less about trying to be cool with weird storylines. Reason 6. can't live up to expectations. This is something that the producers have no control over, but it's their own fault for shamelessly trying to copy the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the first place. Why did they have to copy the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Copying something doesn't instantly mean that your copy will be better. It takes a lot of work and talented people, and I'm sure that there is plenty of that in the DC Extended Universe, but because they took the easy way out, people are going to expect them to compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is impossible. The only way it would have worked is if Marvel and DC both came up with the same idea at the same time. Then it would be like choosing between PlayStation or Xbox. Reason 5. The DC Extended Universe needs a glue. The Marvel Cinematic Universe never would have worked if there hadn't been something to hold all the movies together. It's not glue, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. Because the Avengers are a division of S.H.I.E.L.D., it makes perfect sense to have S.H.I.E.L.D. appear in all the early movies to subtly hint that each of these movies is going to culminate in the Avengers. The DC Extended Universe doesn't have anything like that, other than Bruce Wayne straight up saying he wants to make a team in the end of Batman vs. Superman. If you compare the two universes side by side, the only reason we knew to expect a Justice League movie is because A, it was obvious from the start that DC was straight up copying the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and B, because Wonder Woman appeared in Batman vs. Superman. Oh, and C, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe had already made an Avengers movie. And the Justice League is the DC equivalent of the Avengers. And while we're on the subject of the Justice League... Reason 4. Not enough solo movies. I find it a little weird how the DC Extended Universe copied the entire idea of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but didn't even follow the same pattern or formula. Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about the birth of the Avengers, so it makes sense for each movie in Phase 1 to be about a particular character's origins, which is why it seems very strange that the DC Extended Universe only introduced 3 characters that are members of the Justice League before actually making the Justice League movie. To be fair, there's a lot more members in the Justice League than the Avengers, or at least the original Avengers, the core 4. But even still, all of those characters had already been introduced in earlier movies, except for Hawkeye. He had a brief cameo in Thor, but he wasn't even talked about by name that I noticed, so he got his first bit of a development in the Avengers. Now let's look at the Justice League movie. It would have been a lot better if they didn't also have to introduce so many characters in one movie. It detracts from the movie's plot. Why didn't they give each character a solo movie first? If they're gonna copy the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least make sure that you get the basics right. Even if the Justice League movie hadn't flopped, it still doesn't have the same kind of payoff as the Avengers because we weren't teased about it at the end of every solo movie that would normally have led up to it. Instead, they just sort of handed us the Justice League movie because they were too impatient. Reason 3. Too many different versions. One way that DC could have cashed in on the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, without really copying them, would have been for them to expand the Arrowverse to include Superman, Green Lantern, Batman, and the rest of the Justice League crew. So not only is it a huge missed opportunity, but because things like the incredible Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, the Arrowverse, and even Smallville were so popular, it starts to feel like a bit too much. Instead of having one actor play Superman, we've had about 5 or 6 over the years, whereas Thor has only been played by one actor and only exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only exceptions are characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men, who weren't originally part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe until recently, which is why Peter Parker has been played by 3 different actors and the X-Men have all been recast at least once, except for Wolverine. Reason 2. The movies are lifeless. Not including Wonder Woman and Shazam, the DC Extended Universe feels like they were just made for the sake of being made. Although I still think that the idea of Batman and Superman fighting each other is ridiculous, if the producers had really spent a lot of time fine-tuning every aspect of the movie, instead of half-assing it, Batman vs. Superman might have been awesome in spite of the stupid concept. Whereas Captain America: Civil War took an awesome concept and ruined it because they didn't have time to cram in the 5 issues worth of conflict that make up the Civil War arc in the comics. But in spite of the fact that they were forced to simplify one of the best stories in Marvel Comics, the movie is still pretty good. Also, all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have a pretty lighthearted feeling to them and are really funny, But the DC Extended Universe movies try too hard to be dark and serious, and this makes them feel lifeless and boring. Reason 1, bad movies. Again, this one is pretty self-explanatory. Add up all the other 9 reasons we've talked about so far, and they create the final reason why I think the DC Extended Universe sucks. You can't be successful if the movies you're producing are bad. It's as simple as that. Don't ever balance a $900 camera on top of a microwave. Use a tripod like the one I've got in that closet there but can't use, because this room is too small for me to open the tripod all the way. But you know what isn't too small? My penis. Oh, that was a really dumb transition. But you know what isn't dumb? Subscribing my YouTube channel. You'll get notified whenever I upload another cool video. And if you want to watch more countdowns, you can click right there on that little button, and you can take a look at the playlist of all the other countdowns I've done, because this is the only one that isn't actually a top 10, and it also took really long time for me to edit it. If you want to see this format come back in other ways, then give me some suggestions down there. And over on Patreon, it would mean a lot to me if you consider pledging your support. And there's all kinds of different rewards based on how much you pledge, so the link to that is also in the description, and there's also a link on my channel page. No, the next video is not going to be reasons why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is awesome, because that would basically just be the same 10 reasons, but like the opposite. I have to get back to work. I got 3 more episodes to do, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace out. See ya.